Welcome. This is Wednesday. Welcome to ESPN Sports Night. No. This is the Dale and Mike Show, and we're coming to you right now live from the Anne Basker Auditorium, where we're going to be involved in listening to a anti-Levy night, or at least an even-handed Levy night. And so all we're going to do is just sit back and watch during the Dale and Mike Show. You can watch this on BadCounty.com live right now, or you can go to badcounty.com and click on Wednesday night after this meeting. So here's the microphone back again. We're all done.
Thank you, Dale. When we did this, we originally were just going to tape it and have it go out, and so this is kind of one of their first experiments, and so is ours. So if you have someone that was just dying to come here and you have a cell phone, you can undo the cell phone, make a quick call, say watch it live on badcounty.com, and they can be with us here. Anyway, introductions.
Okay, I'm Joseph Rice. I've lived in Grants Pass since 2001. I've been pretty active in the community and concerned about the direction we head. I tend to be more focused on sense of community, citizens we can do and help ourselves. I'm also the county coordinator for Oath Keepers. And we're a very constitutionally minded group. We are heavy, 80% veterans, law enforcement, former and current, and anyone that ever upheld or swore an oath to the Constitution of the United States. So we believe in our constitutional principles. That's kind of my background. We also have Mr. Bill Hunker.
Thank you. Bill Hunker. I've been in the county for about 8 years. Have not been involved in politics. About 3 years ago, started coming to this room, listening, and said, I think I need to become involved. So as time has gone on, I've gotten a little more involved, and as this levy came up, started digging around some of the facts and figures, and said, okay, they don't jive with what I'm hearing. And so kind of that's evolved around to a real nice grassroots group who is funding and looking after and volunteering all of this for your information. So we're just hoping to get information out, and that's why we're here. Who's up front, believe me, is not anywhere near who's involved with the whole program. We've also gotten, and we weren't sure he was going to make it because we were depending on public transportation, but Joshua Robbins was on a Greyhound bus, a bus. You were on a bus today, and we said, we may see you. He's here, so welcome, Joshua.
All right, thank you very much. I didn't know if I was going to make it, and I didn't know they were going to have me sitting here. So, but I'm chairman of the Josephine County Republican Party, and I'm not representing the party sitting here as far as what I believe as far as the levy is concerned. We are going to be having a meeting next Tuesday where we discuss this, and our PCPs are going to be voting on how the party moves forward with this issue. And I hope you all come. It should be a good discussion, and I hope we can move forward with our party and do what's best for the citizens and the sheriff. I'm not against the sheriff. I would like the sheriff to be successful. I think we need to find a reasonable way that we can provide the funds that he needs. So thank you very much. Should be a fun evening.
A couple other things. Bruce McFarland's running the slideshow here. And then Mary Emmerich, where are you? Mary's in the back. As we get into the discussion tonight, she will be holding the microphone, and you can come up and ask questions so we can, what I'm sure is to turn into a lively debate. Now, when we go into our next slide with JOCO Alert, the forum is sponsored by JOCO Alert. Basically, truth, transparency, accountability equals trust. One of the greatest things and issues we're having within our community today is trust. People are frustrated. They want to reach out. They don't know the direction we're headed. We want to see a wise, managed use of our resources and tax dollars. So we're not against public safety. I got to make that clear right out of the bat. We are not against public safety. We do support the sheriff office and its mission. We just question the way the funding is done. Again, we go to transparency. Currently, we believe this is the wrong tax levy, and this is the wrong time for this tax levy. It doesn't seem to be well thought out. It seems to be ill-conceived, and there are too many open areas, there are too many loopholes in here, and there seems to be a tremendous unwillingness to provide transparency and accountability of exactly where the money to the penny is going to be going and how it's going to be used. Here's our issue, crime. So we have three categories, and this is what is reported when we talk about crime statistics and what we look at. We have the violent crime. That's what everyone truly is concerned about. We want to live in a safe community, in a safe county. We don't have to worry about walking down the street and being accosted. The other issue is property crime. We don't want the things and items that we work very hard for to be stolen and taken from us. That property crime is what you expect: break-ins, stolen cars, anything you own that is stolen or taken from you. Now we have behavioral crime, and that's more of an individual crime. That's the person that chooses to drive down the road drunk, that's using drugs, that's doing something behaviorally that's not really acceptable to society. And those are the other types of crime that we have to fight and we have to deal with. So what we're looking at here is what does it mean? Oregon versus the United States. So as you look at this chart, what it's actually telling you and showing you is, if you look at the red, this is Oregon, and the blue is the United States. So from the mid-'80s, roughly 90s, you've seen we've been in a downward trend. So the statistics we're giving, the last reported statistics, official statistics, tend to be right around 2013, so about a year and a half to 2 years out. But as you see, crime has substantially, been decreasing. If you look at the height in the 80s to where we've arrived or heading towards today.
We're to actually 50% of our top in Oregon from 88. It actually 86 and 88 were identical, small dip in 87, and then we're half the crime today of 1988 in our peak from 1970. In the United States, that peak happened in 1991, and they are now half of their crime from their peak in 1991.
So where does it happen? With the reported statistics, currently 80% of all crime happens in the city of Grants Pass. Keep in mind, that's with a fully staffed police department. Now, we cannot, I don't believe anybody in this room believes, we'll become a crimeless society. We're always going to have those individuals that will go out and commit crime. That's a given nature of man. It's just going to happen. So if you look at this, these statistics are showing property crime. Now, if you look at property crime, and what we've seen here is in 95, 96, 97, we had some pretty big spikes. But again, with the other trending that we saw, the United States versus Oregon, it has continually decreased. So we had a low in 2010, and we bumped up a little bit in 2011, 2012. We're just one off here. So what you can also see in here is, as we look at our economy, you're going to see a direct correlation to crime. So obviously people are without jobs. We're going to see an impact in crime and where it's going to be coming from. That's just a given. People sell things, steal things, trying to survive, put food on the table, whatever the reason may be, support a habit. So the big thing is, from 1995 to 2012, property crime has been reduced by 49%. Now I want to keep in mind, these statistics are coming from the state of Oregon, and this is their annual report right here. This is their numbers, not ours. We're just putting them forth in front of everybody. So we move into the county. Here we have 20% of the crime. So the county includes every part that is not this incorporated part of Grants Pass, the city. So when we go out into the outskirts of the county, we're talking O'Brien and Merlin and Wilderville, only 20% of the crime occurs out there. Now, what's interesting, again, the same statistics, you can see how it's been lower. We're talking much lower crime that's occurred out there. What's important about this is we've heard about the dark numbers, the unreported crime. Well, if we look at the time when we had funding, it was low. It's being reported. Even times here, fully funded.
Yeah, and in fact, if you look at 2011 and 2002, they're identical numbers. If you look at 2012 and 2001, they're identical numbers. And the funding was, we had full-on funding in those years. And then now we're claiming, oh, it's terrible. Well, we were at those same lows. So if you don't report crime, evidently for some reason we don't know about, they didn't report it in 2001 and 2002. And I'd like to say about dark numbers that we've heard a lot if you've been on social media and so forth. My question about dark numbers is, when did they start? And what are they? Well, no one can tell you when they started because they always have been there. There's always been dark numbers. And what are they? They don't know what they are. And the second they find out in any given situation, 2 years later, they're different. So they have done studies where dark numbers they're trying to pull those dark numbers out. But what you really say is in any given year, it's crime plus dark numbers for everybody. So you don't say too much about dark numbers because no one can tell you what those are. I will say here with one of the reasons that, and dark numbers are supposedly those crimes that have happened, but people aren't calling, they aren't telling, they aren't doing anything about a crime they know happened. What I have, my illustration is, if you've gotten house insurance or insurance of any kind, you've probably tried to save money by raising your deductible. So if your lawnmower is stolen for $125, $250 and you have a $500 deductible, are you going to do the paperwork with your insurance company and the paperwork with the police department to make that happen? You're not going to. We're all busy. And so our $500 deductible, automatically all crimes in property under $500 for you don't get reported. Was it a crime? Absolutely it was a crime. Was it reported? No, it wasn't reported. It wasn't worth it to you. Now, if your $15,000 bike gets stolen, your Goldwing, what is it? Who's those bikes? Your Harley, it gets stolen. Is evidently a real bike person. When it gets stolen, you will take the time and effort to do the paperwork and pay your $500 or $1,000 deductible on that. So that's a crime. They're both crimes, but you choose those that go in. And there are other circumstances we can talk about if you choose.
So as we look at both of them together, this is the interesting slide. So if we look at the city versus the county, this is our 80% in the city of Grants Pass, and this is our 20% crime in the county. Now, when we start talking about taxing measures, some things I just want you to kind of keep in the back of your head. The city of Grants Pass has a fully staffed law enforcement department. So they're still experiencing these rates of crime. And when you start talking about density of population, things like that, it's going to occur. When you look at the county, though, we're not seeing it. It is reported. So we've got 20% out there. So when we start talking at this $1.40, it's a substantial amount of money for what has been a downward trending of crime. And it becomes a perception issue versus a reality issue. I mean, the reality is we're safer now than we were 20 years ago with fully staffed departments. So how much comes out of your pocket every year? And so if we look at taxes, this is what everybody pays. We pay federal, state of Oregon, and then Josephine County, and then also the city of Grants Pass. These are dollars that physically come out of your pocket. We all are obligated to pay. And, you know, that's a responsibility of our society. We have to pay taxes so we can enjoy law enforcement, we can enjoy roads that are well maintained, we can enjoy infrastructure, we have a justice system to punish those that violated the law. That's the price of living in a civilized society. Of course, we go into the age-old argument, are they used efficiently and effectively? So if we skip over, this is something that folks may not be aware of. This was buried in what's commonly referred to as Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act. And what happened in January of this year is the Medicare tax went from 1.45 to 2.35, If your income bracket, your top thing, you went from 35% to 39.6%, almost 40% of your tax now. So you go to work, and 40% of your year you work for the federal government to pay your taxes. Payroll taxes, this was a huge jump. And then capital gains, this is another big jump here. And what's important about capital gains, if anybody has a death or something like that, anything like that, you make a good sale on a car or something, you could fall into this capital gains here. Dividend tax and the estate tax, huge. So if you have family estates and a grandparent died, they left you their house, their car, or something like that, you now have the privilege of paying 55% of that to the federal government. They own half of that, more than half of that car.
Is there a level that kicks in? For example, in California, I think there's that kicks in as opposed to, it doesn't apply to all inheritances. So if it's a $250,000, it does not apply. If it's over $1 million.
I don't know. I can't answer that. But it's substantial. And I think with that, it did reduce down. It dropped down. And, you know, why are we seeing these numbers here? We have trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. We got to pay it off somehow. And that goes to curtailing and responsible spending. So the other thing is we look into Oregon. Right now in the legislature, as of this afternoon, there are 50 new tax bills sitting in the wings. So the date of this was January 19th, 2015. So we're not done yet. For the privilege of living in Oregon, we're going to see some of these come down. The legislature's in session. We don't know the direction they're going to head. We don't know what's going to be coming down to us. But I'm sure not all of them, but I'd be willing to say at least a third of them will probably make their way through. So where does your money go here in Josephine County? So if we look at it, where does your tax go? This is everything you pay depending on where you live in the county. So all of your money goes to someplace here. It goes to the county, to the city and the county if you're living in both. Cave Junction School District, Three Rivers, Road Community College, Southern Oregon Educational Service District, 4-H, everybody pays that. That's a taxing district for 4-H. Illinois Valley, you're paying for fire. Williams, you're paying for fire. Wolf Creek, you're paying for fire. Kirby, you're paying for water. And then everybody pretty much in the Grants Pass area is paying for the irrigation district. If you have access to the water or you don't, you still pay for it. And then on top of that, you have a subscription fire service. You have to pay for that. And then, you know, the animal shelter is the more recent one. So as we move on, how does the levy impact you directly? So what we're looking at is if you go to $1.40, so right now, the lowest tax rate is $6 per thousand. So this is per thousand of assessed home value. You're paying $6. The high in the city is $12.58. Now, if anyone finds these blue pamphlets around, this is actually a Josephine County product that's put out, and you can open it up, and within it, you can see all the different tax zones in here. This is where this information came from. So you go down to the assessor's office, and it's all right there. You can look it up. So as you look at it, if you're in Cave Junction, you're paying $10.44 per thousand assessed. With $1.40, this is what you're going to jump to. So this is what you are currently paying every year. This is money that physically comes out of your pocket. You may not see it because it could be built into your home mortgage. So a lot of folks pay their property taxes through their bank, and the bank pays it to the county. So when you see your mortgage rates go up or go down, that's not a variable. That's probably because taxes have increased. So this is what you physically are paying per $1,000 of assessed value. when the levy or this proposed levy, if it's enacted, this is what it goes to. So that's physically what will come out of your pocket.
And Joseph, there are 11 taxing districts, by the way, and we just put these up, for example, with the high, low, and some in between. So find your taxing district. You can look on your tax statement. It's called code, and you'll know what taxing district you're in, and then you'll be able to get an exact figure of what they're dealing with this year.
Okay, so let's get in the nuts and bolts of the tax levy 17-66. As we've all heard, you know, the county's always headed for the fiscal cliff. Always wondering who's driving the car. So this is the actual verbiage. This is the legal verbiage that was submitted to the Secretary of State. It was approved, and it is going to be in the voters pamphlet. So as we kind of run through it, for patrol, jail, shelter of abused youth, 5-year levy. That means this levy, once put in, will go for a period of 5 years. It does sunset unless it is extended or voted upon again. Questions. Shall county increase deputies, dispatchers, jail capacity, juvenile facilities, cost of $1.40 per thousand assessed value, 5 years beginning 2015, 2016. This will go into effect this year. So we will see the impact, the financial impact of it this year. The measure may cause property taxes to increase more than 3%. We are actually looking at numbers we've been playing with, and we're looking at actually, it's about 240% is the impact to people of taxes that it will increase. So the passage of this measure will subject and require budgetary process and limitations. Can anyone help me with that one? What does that mean? It says, will subject to required budgetary process and limitations. I'm just going to write that off right now as a hidden cost. Provide funding for 16 sheriff deputies, including patrol cars, 4 911 dispatchers to increase sheriff's patrols, provide necessary emergency response, increase sheriff patrols during times of heightened criminal activity. Now we have some of Grant's past finest in the back of the room, and I would ask, what is heightened criminal activity?
Good move.
I apologize. I put you on the spot like that, but I bring that up, and I don't mean to jest, but yeah, I do. Heightened criminal activity. I mean, law enforcement is law enforcement. They're here. They're on the job, and criminal activity will hire. It won't hire. I mean, if I see heightened criminal activity, it seems we're rioting or something like that. It doesn't seem to be a constant. You want to have a constant presence, a constant linear staffing of law enforcement. Allow sheriff to enforce laws when individuals engage in illegal activities. I thought that's what he did already. So, which impacts residents both in rural and urban sections of Josephine County. Now, urban sections I understand to be Cave Junction, Merlin, those incorporated townships. Provide funding. Jail capacity 160 beds, keeping those convicted of violent crimes in jail. Well, a crime is a crime. Violent is obviously what we're concerned about. One of the things I think we need to kind of look at here too is when you talk about violent crime, anybody that's been convicted of any crime, if they're sentenced to 12 months and a day, they're not staying here. They go to state prison. The county does not house them here. They are shipped to state prison, anything over in excess of 12 months. Provide funding to reopen Juvenile Justice Center to shelter abused youth and counsel local youth in crisis. That makes sense to me. I think that's a good thing. It's important because right now, if we talk about the economy and the problems we're facing within our community, we only have a 64% graduation rate with our Three Rivers School District. 64%. That's abysmal. What do we expect when kids that don't graduate hit the streets? The guys in back are going to work. Create a better business and job environment to improve public safety in Josephine County. I'm sorry, I do have trouble with this one. We'll kind of get a little more into it. The statistics are showing, believe it or not, Josephine County is the safest county in Southwest Oregon. Medford, Oregon, or Medford, the city of Medford down in Jackson County, with fully funded and staffed police and sheriff, is the most dangerous city in the state of Oregon. You have more opportunity to be assaulted if you go to Costco in Medford than you ever would have happen here in Josephine County. I'm not making this up. This is out of the state statistics. To ensure,
Just to jump on that, everybody is talking about property crime, and it is an issue. It's also in Jackson County and our county and Douglas County. We're all three at 5-year highs. However, when you rank us out, Jackson County is second in the state in property crimes. We're down at 7th. Lane is up at 5. Douglas is down in property crimes, I think at 13th. So it isn't just that we are alone in our property crimes rising. As we have them, Jackson County has them in double measure.
and I think that makes perfect sense to me, because if you look at our economy, the downturn in the economy, property crime goes up. That's just a natural correlation. People lose their jobs. They still have to feed their families. It happens. Okay, this is the biggest question. Yep. $1.40, where's it going? You know, as I showed you, these are our taxes. I can pull out all the information that I have that has been researched throughout our group and our team, and we still can't get the simple answer to where's it going. Is there anybody in this room here that would just give money to a service and not understand what they're getting in return for that service? You know, is it defined? And that's the critical issue. I believe we the people. I believe it is our government. I believe our government should have transparency and accountability, and they should willfully tell us how the money is going to be spent, where it's going to be spent. So when you go to the voting booth and you, or in our case, mail in your ballot, and you make a decision, you're making an informed decision. You know exactly what you are supporting and what you're not supporting. So as we look at it, we made a research trip up to Lane County, and it was interesting when we went up to the county. They did a 55-cent tax levy, and what they did is Lane County decided that, hey, we must fund this. We need to keep our jails open. They had 3 different facilities. They had shuttered 2 of them, and they took a real hard look. What do we really need? And so they said, well, 55 cents, we can have the jail beds that we need and require. And they broke it down to the penny. Everybody in Lane County knew exactly how that 55 cents was going to be spent. They knew 5 cents was going to juvenile justice. They knew 50 cents was going to the jail, and they broke it down to the penny as to where and what jail operation it was supporting. And I think that's good government. I think that's responsible government. I think that keeps our citizens informed and not in the dark. So the big question is, where's it go? How's it going to be used? And again, we fall back into trust. You want to trust your elected representatives. You want to trust the efficient use of our resources, because we've watched our economy contract, and businesses and families have had to make very, very hard choices. They've, you know, I'm not going on vacation this year. We're not going to buy the new car. We're not doing a variety of things because we physically don't have the money. Government doesn't seem to do it that efficiently. And so they try and maintain at the same level as they always have. And this is where we come at. I also see this $1.40 as a massive disconnect from the citizens living in the county. And I say that because I don't think people have taken time to drive around our county and see that people are struggling. People are making decisions between food on the table, pay the rent. I find it to be immoral, and I find a lack of integrity to go out to people that are just trying to make ends meet and go, hey, give me $1.40. So with that being said, let's break it down. So they asked for 16 patrol deputies. Now, it's the response time. How do we impact crime? Now, the gentleman back in Grants Pass here, I bet you they can show up here in 3 to 4 minutes. They're really good at it. They're working in a smaller geographic area. and they are coordinated and they can respond here quickly. When you take the geographic size of Josephine County, it's physically impossible to have enough patrol deputies that we could afford that will get there in time. And I kind of refer to them as second responders. They show up after the crime has been committed. It's very rare that they've interrupted a crime in progress. Yes, they do catch people, they do have things happen, but the majority of times crime reports have been made, it's after people have been robbed. It's after people have had some type of violent assault take place. And so that's the issue. And I think as a community, a society here, we have to kind of accept that. We have to accept that there's a cost to doing business and we can't have everything we want. And is the 16 patrol deputies going to change this? That's the number that's really important. Are we going to reduce the 40-minute response time? Because this is what people care about. That's the important part right there.
And Bruce, we just for fun tried to figure out what it would take to do an equal response time in number of officers as the Grants Pass is able to do. We got up to at least 96 officers we'd have to have out there, and figured that that would do most of it. So we're looking for 16. We're never going to have 96. They never had 96, and they won't have it in the future. So if you want to say, why can't we get what we get in Grants Pass, it's geographical, and it's not going to happen.
The other thing is, as I showed, remember the earlier slides on crime, we were talking about property crime. And across duty economy, property crime has ticked up. Behavioral crime and violent crime has still been on the downward slide. They're still just decreasing. With that being said, obviously it's an economic issue, but you have those repeat offenders out there. Right now, I know the sheriff's office has a backlog of crime reports. So in this levy, where are the detectives? This I can see is what we need. We need detectives to be able to go in and start investigating the backlog of crime or new crime that's committed, and you're going to find those repeat offenders, you're going to catch them, and then you're going to start seeing that property crime start to come back down. Not going to be an overnight thing, maybe a year or two, but the fact is we start looking out and catching them. I mean, this is a huge element that's missing out of this levy. Patrol cars. Now, how many and when? They say they're going to hire 16 deputies. Is that 16 patrol cars also? One for each deputy? Is that 8 patrol cars and they share it on a shift? Is it 9 patrol cars with a spare? What is that? Is that going to be, when are they going to do it? And at what cost is that? How is this going to be immediately out of the gate? We're going to go buy 16 patrol cars and we're going to outfit them with everything that goes into a patrol car. You know, we're going to be looking at the radios, the laptop computers, the data links, all that stuff. A big thing here, if you remember at the height when we were looking at the numbers and we started to kind of lay off and reduce, the sheriff's department, the office, had patrol cars. Why were they sold? Why were these not put into storage with the idea that we would eventually bounce back and come back up and we would have them again? Jack? Not all of them. So, yeah, you're correct. There were two vehicles that were, there's what Jack's saying, and this is Mr. Swift. 2 were moved over. There was a Jeep, Cherokee-like, and a regular patrol car were transferred to the parks, and they're utilizing those vehicles. The issue is the others were actually sold, and they're gone. They're not around anymore. And then the other thing is what's the duty life of a patrol car? Is it a calendar month figure? Is it a mileage figure? I've recently heard the sheriff state this car has 90,000 miles on it, it's a piece of junk. Well, how many people in this room have 90,000 miles on the car or more? It's not a piece of junk. So, you know, what is that? We would all love brand new patrol cars. I personally You know, I served in the military. I did 3 tours in Afghanistan. I would have liked the latest and greatest gee whiz stuff. It would have been easier to do my job. But I had to do my job with the equipment I had, and it was safe equipment. It wasn't shiny. It wasn't all the bells and whistles, but it was safe. And I think when we look at patrol cars, we need to look at, are they safe? Are they functional? Are they maintained properly? It also provides for 4 911 dispatchers to handle the uptick in deputies. So with that, 2 things. Oath Keepers 3 weeks ago had our monthly meeting. The sheriff spoke, and he stated that he's currently exploring contracting 911 services or combining them with the city. So the question that came to my mind is, okay, that makes good fiscal sense. If it makes efficiency where you have better joint operations and unity working with the Grants Pass Police and the sheriff, they can back each other up whatever they need, that makes perfect sense. But then, again, the $1.40. This has some type of magic dollar number attached to it. How much is it? And if this is an actual tax levy, what else can that money be used for? I mean, if it's allocated in here, that's going to be used for 4 911 dispatchers, and then they don't have them, or they combine or contract out, what happens to the money? Again, the whole transparency and accountability issue. So this one I do have trouble with, increased patrols. So it states that they're going to increase patrols to 16 hours a day. Makes good sense. 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. A number of people went to the county commissioners, and we wanted patrols to be 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. They approved $522,000 for this fiscal year, what we're in right now, and it was sent to the sheriff's office to support 12 hours a day, 7 days a week on patrols. 2 weeks into January, those patrols were reduced to 10 hours a day, still 7 days a week. We lost 28 hours of patrols a week. We lost over a day of patrol time every week. Again, where did the $522,000 go to? We've already paid to have 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, but we're getting 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, at a loss of 28 hours. Maybe we're going to bump that 12 during times of heightened criminal activity. I don't know. So that's a question. How do you say you want increased patrol, and then the first thing you do is decrease patrol that's already been funded? Jail beds, one of my favorites. We have a perception, we have a belief, we need a lot of jail beds. Now go back to 80% of the crime is in the city, 20% of the crime is in the county. Who do you believe is the majority user of jail beds at the county-run jail? The city. The city supports and runs and utilizes the majority of the jail beds. So again, with our trip up to Lane County, we found some interesting statistical data. Josephine County has a population of 83,000 people. We are asking for 160 jail beds. If we go up to Benton County, which is right outside of Eugene, they have a population of 87,000 people. Currently today, as we talk, they have 69 jail beds. What is Benton County doing in its policing that's so radically different in Josephine County? Now, what this slide also represents is all of these counties. Josephine County right now has on average 3 times the number of jail beds per capita than any other county.
And I'll jump in here. This is a graph that shows as built. So all these counties have built jails. Multnomah County, I know, is not utilizing their jail capacity. We have never utilized our jail capacity. 180 beds is the most we've ever had. We built 262 beds. And so this is as built, and in any county with a population higher than we are, they're all as built this much less than we are. Now, as used, we went up to Lane County. They just passed a levy for 55 cents to increase their jail, and they said, oh man, now we can work for 5 years and feel comfortable and relax a little bit. And they are 1 per 1,000, 1 bed per 1,000 population. They are a 359,000 population in Lane County. That means if we take those same numbers into our county, we should have 84 beds. They're asking for 160. How does Lane do this? I think we should send them up there for training because they're doing something and they've lived this way for some length of time.
And what Bill's saying is interesting is if you look at when the jail was built in 2000, 2001, that was done off of a bond levy. Nothing was ever passed to support or run the jail, and it has never been passed. So when we look at it, if people were here at that time and you remember the sales pitch that was given, oh, we're going to do this, it's going to make money, it's going to be the best thing for the county. Here we are, what's happened? It hasn't. So we have a facility that has 262 beds. We're asking for 160. And this is where I get really kind of analytical and I get bothered by this. We're told we need this with crime decreasing. Crime's less now than it was when the jail was built. But we need more beds than any of these other counties. We actually have 3 times the amount of beds than any of these other counties. And of our jail, the 80% user of it is the city of Grants Pass. The county's only 20% user. But guess what we're doing? We are paying and maintaining a jail for the city. That's kind of what I see as the bottom line. We're paying for something that is used by somebody else.
And also to add to that, when you look at the 262 beds, and that was a 1/3 of the money spent to build and to maintain all these years that has never been opened up or used even once. So you had 1/3 of your bond money go to nothing, and we're sold that. And my personal view of that is that when was the last time we passed a levy? It was in 2000, the year they opened the jail. It took them 2 years to build the jail. They gave a bond in 1998. They took 2 years. They opened the jail. And I think everybody in the county said, whoa, this is a boondoggle. We're not going to supply any more money to this. And they never have. This is now, we're with our 15 years later. We never passed a levy because I think part of it, subconscious or otherwise, we can't trust these guys to tell us the truth. And the truth is, we overbuilt by a gigantic margin compared with the entire rest of the state.
The bottom line in the jail is, Benton County, 69 jail beds with a population of 87,000. We are asking for 160 with a population of 83,000. That includes the city. And if you look at Lane County, 359,000 people, their capacity, we only need 84 beds. So again, I think this is getting in the argument of want versus need.
I want to ask that the Josephine County is the one ready because that's what's wanted, right?
No, this is current. This is current.
That's current.
That's current.
This is as built, not
built.
as currently being utilized for all of the counties. This was as built.
So basically, our jail has roughly 3 times the amount of bed space of these other counties, which in population density is larger than Josephine County.
Larry?
Yes, the time this jail was built, building an entirely new concept called clusters. Each cluster had to have a certain specialized training. And even though we got the clusters, we had to raise the grade. We could never afford to train up to make those specialized clusters required. And therefore, they couldn't possibly use them. Number 2, all the numbers we talked about here tonight, never had it been brought up yet, but we're paying 17 cents for 1,000 four-wheel vehicles.
That's correct, and you're absolutely correct. If you remember, what Mr. West is saying, if you remember back in the early slides and the numbers I showed, that's $6 to $12, that 17 cents is rolled in there. And that is going to continue, if I remember right, for another
4 years, I think.
4 years.
4 more.
So we'll continue to pay that for another 4 years. So that's kind of the deal on the beds, the jails. One of the things some of the topics I've heard, we need to put them in jail to be safe. I don't know if I agree with that. I think we need to find better solutions as a community, economic, jobs, a purpose, get people working. We're not going to need that. Back in 2000, whoever built that jail, that was a smoking good deal for them. Problem is, we're paying for it now. And they're trying to continue to justify its existence here. And the reality is, if we look at all the other counties and all the other beds, we don't need it.
Joseph, pardon me, point of clarification. The red column is 262 beds, which is what the jail's built to.
That's correct.
160 or 180 under that.
160 is what's asked for by the levy.
Yeah.
Okay.
That red column is based on 260.
As built,
We
yes.
just highlighted the red so you could tell Josephine County versus all the other counties. It doesn't have any other significance except that the ask is for 160 beds. Okay, juvenile justice. They're talking about reopening the juvenile justice system. What we've researched and our understanding is there's 8 employees still working there. My understanding, again, this goes back to clarification, understanding where your money and tax dollars are going. How is it going to be used? I've heard it's going to be used for beds, it's going to be used for counseling, it's going to be used as an in-house treatment facility, as a detention facility. I've heard a variety of things, but I've not gotten a clear, this is what we're going to do with the money. I think we talked about this, create a better, excuse me, in the levy it does say they want to create a better environment where people feel safe. Perception becomes reality. And a lot of our elected leadership is continually telling us that we're unsafe and we need more. So if we look at statistics, if we look at what we showed earlier for crime statistics and we start going around the state of Oregon, Josephine County today, out of the government's own reporting statistics, and when I say reporting statistics, this is coming directly from the Sheriff's Office or the Grants Pass Police Department to the Oregon State Police, to the Department of Justice, to the FBI. They're universal.
Oregon Uniform Crime Report.
That's the official crime report of what we're getting these numbers from. If we look at that, Josephine County, based on those numbers, we are the safest county in Southwest Oregon. And in the state of Oregon, if you remove property crime.
Well, this is just a fun statistic, but
Fun, yeah.
if you remove the city of Grants Pass, as we would never want to do, obviously, but if you could just lift them out, including their population, we have the lowest property crime in all of Oregon for the population that's left. Now, that's impossible and it's kind of useless statistic, but it's something to know.
So, when we talk about perception being reality, we're told things that are not true. We're told factually incorrect information. I think when we talk about JOCO Alert and what we're doing, a lot of us, it kind of got our dander off and we started digging in. I like to ask why. Where'd you get that from? What's your fact and statistic? And, you deal with statistical or you deal with emotional. This levy has been a very emotional argument, but it's not been a statistical argument. If you look at statistics and what the government uses and what do we do? I mean, I've told, well, these numbers aren't current. Well, yeah, they are. For government, they're very current. I mean, you'll laugh, but, in D.C. and the state, they're funding on statistics and studies done that are 6-7 years old. So these are very current. They're very real numbers.
And I might just add, I have been in personal contact with the manager who does the numbers, and 2013, which is the very latest that they'll have, is due out by April 1. So I'm sorry we didn't schedule this 4 days after that, but he is saying that they'll be out April 1. They've actually retemplated their entire program, and it's taken, 13 is late. It usually comes out earlier than this. And he apologized and said he'd be right in touch, Matt Adele. And so we're in constant contact. When those numbers come out, we will put them on Joe Cole Alert immediately. And it doesn't matter what they are, we have not massaged a single number. And if property crimes spike out there, then you'll get to see it along with us. We think it's going to be about the same with a slight rise.
If we look at, this is a big one. A lot of the levy has been, the Citizens Oversight Committee, and I'll get down to the nuts and bolts of it. They have no teeth. It's a feel good. It doesn't mean anything. You might as well call this the float committee. It's got about that much authority when they go and sit with the sheriff or anything else like that. I don't understand. I support the sheriff. As Joshua said, I hope to see him succeed. But with that, I would hope he would listen to this. And part of the concern is the representation of the Citizens Oversight Committee. And when I look at it, we've been told they're working on the bylaws. It's a group of community individuals.
Civic leaders and responsible leaders. Yes,
Civic
of the
responsible leaders. I didn't qualify. I wasn't called. So as I look at it, the concerns I have is if you really want an oversight committee, three things are going to happen. First, you're going to elect the positions, and each district, taxing district within the county, will have a representative. They must be represented. If they're paying the taxes, they have to know this is the taxing district. They need to have a representative on the oversight committee. Second, the commissioners will adopt a resolution. They will abide by the recommendations of the oversight committee. Third, the sheriff will adopt a resolution saying he will abide by the recommendations of the oversight committee. Currently, that doesn't exist. It's people getting together like we are right here tonight, discussing concerns, putting it forward, and hopefully somebody listens to it. So there's no teeth in this at all. And I think one of the biggest things in here, you have to have community representation. We are sitting in Grants Pass. I think a lot of the elected leadership forgets we have a county out there. We have people out in O'Brien. We have people up in Wolf Creek. We've got them all over the place. They must be represented. They have to have a say in this because they're the ones that are going to pay for this service. This was where I talked about the hidden costs, the budgetary process at the very first part of the levy. What we do know is $900,000 off the top disappears. So the first year, it's forecasted that $9 million will be generated by the $1.40 tax levy. 10% is immediately taken by what's called the Internal Services Fund. The Internal Services Fund does something to do with internal services. But what this does is this is the administration of the money. Now, following along in this concept, we pay taxes. That establishes a accounting office, a chief financial officer. It establishes government infrastructure. It's already here. We're already paying for it. So what this does is when we have the $1.40 go into it, the $9 million is generated, they pull, sorry about that, they pull 10%, 900,000 off the top to administer $9 million. How many folks in business? Okay. Is this a good deal? Is this how you run your accounting department? I'm sorry. If this is a public safety levy, keep it for public safety, period. Again, when we went up to Lane County, their structure, they do have an internal services fund, and any single tax levy, taxing district, bond, or anything goes to the intended use 100%. They pull nothing from it because they're the internal services fund. That's their job. They are already there and established within the government to administer these items as they come down the road. We're already paying for it. This is the double dip. So the county charter is another important one. And has anybody ever read this? This is the county charter. This is Josephine County Charter. And what this does is this outlines how our government will be run and managed. This is, if you will, our mini constitution or rule book. In this rule book, it states that the county commissioners will fund the library, they will fund animal shelters, and they will fund public safety, the sheriff's department. It's in there. Larry.
Yeah, the county charter says they will support the library, not fund it. The charter says they will. Fund and support. They could use the word shall 5 times. It's an animal shelter. That's it. Not the other way around. Another thing with the county process, these counties have adapted what they call allocation funding accounting system. And this is why it's that's what it's.
Good point. I mean, if you look at this, $900,000 off the top of what should be supporting public safety. I mean, I'm all for public safety. When we went to Lane County, their money, this 55 cents per thousand for their jail, went directly into a fund specifically for the sheriff's department. What happens here in the budgetary process, this money goes into the general fund, and then at the discretion of the commissioners, it's moved out to the sheriff's office, the sheriff. Now, here's the other thing that's not discussed. Currently, 31 cents is funded to the sheriff's office. Now, this is where I get into transparency, accountability again, and the trust issue. Does that mean that $1.40 is on top of the 31 cents? And so we're going to actually look at $1.71 to the sheriff's office? Or is that 31 cents going to be removed from their budget and put back into the general fund? That's not been defined or described. We don't know where that money is going to go.
Which is about a 1.5 million, by the way, your 31 cents. So they can have that along with the 900,000. That's a big bowl of money that they do not have to be responsible to tell you what it is. And we don't know. The 31 cents could be going with the $1.40. We don't know that. And again, the transparency and thus the trust issues. We're going to get you on a chair that just.
Yeah, let's try and get through the presentation because we're going to have a question and answer, but Mr. Matthews did, and since we'll go to our sponsor, I guess.
The ISF is a very sensitive issue to the pro-government side. They have said to me at SOS meeting that the ISF is 10%, that it's half of 1%, that it's 10% coming out of the sheriff at 15 cents going, 15% going back in. Well, those last two things were from the same job. This is a very sensitive issue with the commissioners. And one of the reasons that the pro-levy side has said, commissioners, stay away from this as much as you can.
Okay.
It's a point there. The other part of this is if you look at it, if you go to the county and require county service, I want to go to the clerk's office and I'm going to get copies made for something. They charge $35 per hour. Well, why is that not happening here? Why are we taking $900,000, 10% of this levy? This chart, this next one here is showing you O&C funding. And this is a historical graph. And what we're looking at here is the blue is our O&C funding.
And that
And-
started in 1960, by the
Yeah.
way. this
So we're at
graph.
1960 here to 2014. The red is what we're seeing as tax. And that's goes back to the,
It comes from Oregon, California, and it deals, Jack could tell us exactly, but it's the timber subsidy that ended up being way back in history and then ultimately turned into rural schools just recently. We know more about the term rural schools right now, which is the government giving us money for taking our land and not letting us make profits on it, have income off of it. So they said, we're gonna have you not cut timber, but because you can't make money, we will give you this money in lieu of. And that's a very rough statement. It has lots of ramifications. Well, what about the sale of? You know, I am not acquainted with the intricacies. I do know that the Forest Service, the property they owns in the county is very small compared with the BLM and even the county and so forth. So I have not looked into that. I would be interested in anyone that had information about that as we go into the question and answer.
So as we're kind of looking at the ONC funding here, you can see in 1960, it went up, and we peaked right here in the 70s, $13 million. Then we had a dip right here. What's interesting is from 1970 to 1980, no one paid property tax. So this could have been, if you will, the rainy day fund, but no one in the county paid any type of property tax at all. Then we saw funding dip up again, and you can see how our taxes started to come up. Then in 96, we had a jump, libraries, and then again, a jump here, and that kind of correlates with a dip in the ONC funds. But what's interesting is if you look at where we are today, we've been there before. And so we've been there before, property taxes were here, but there wasn't an increase. There wasn't this dramatic spiking that we're seeing here. So here we are right now today, and actually, with the recent news, we're right here today with ONC funding.
Yeah.
Going forward, here's areas that, you know, I think we need to look at. We can't look to our government entities to fix it all. We have to be more community-based. Look at your neighbor. Seriously, look who you're sitting next to right now. This is our community. You know, this is how we get to know each other, how we work together. And these are things we can do. Community watch, you know, safety, property values, awareness, a unified community. We can make ourselves safer. What is the one thing that has a dramatic effect on property crime? Right here, neighborhood watches. This is a huge thing, and it's effective. And guess what it costs us, the taxpayer? Nothing. All you got to do is get involved. Step off the curb in the street and get involved and do something. And that's where we can make a difference. We can cry about, oh, we don't have public safety, we don't have this. Well, the statistics show we do. The statistics show we're in a downward trend for crime, and actually in funding, we're in pretty good shape. So these are things that we can do as a community to make a difference. And this is what we can do immediately to have a direct impact on property crime in the county.
And I can do a quick one just in our neighborhood. We started a neighborhood watch from another group. They had 120 homes. They had 3 burglaries in 1 year and decided to form Neighborhood Watch 9 years ago. They have not had a single crime in that 120 homes in the last 9 years. But they patrol, they know each other, they're involved with each other.
So here's some facts, and we call it kind of a did you know. If the levy passes, your rent gets raised. Anybody that's a renter, we've met with some folks here, we've asked a number of people. I said, well, how are you going to do with that? And they said, oh, my tax goes up, my rent is absorbed immediately. I raise the rent. So that's a reality of it. Pay raises. I had a sheriff deputy, you know, tell me one time, we haven't had a raise in 5 years. Okay. How many people in the county haven't had a raise in 6, 7 years? Or how many people in the county have a job? If we look at pay and benefits with a deputy sheriff, they're right around $100,000. They're between $60,000 and $70,000. Now, if you look within the profession, people tend to look at what they earn in the profession. The sheriff's department, sheriff's office, pays less than the city does. We have a retention problem because when they train a new deputy, he's on the job for however long, and then he immediately migrates to Medford or to Grants Pass City Police. I see that as an administrative failure. If you bring a guy in, you train him, you sign a training contract, and over a period of 5 years, you pay so much back on his training. So you're going to have him there for a period of time. You know, we all invest money, we expect returns. You know, investment returns, same thing. If we're putting people and we're training people, we're giving them a life skill to earn a living, there's a payback. We need some return on that investment. And that's where if we're going to put them on the job, then we need to have some type of training contract, a legal binding contract that holds them to it. So the other thing, and this is where I start talking about those administrative things, PERS. This is the Public Employee Retirement System. Currently, Josephine County is $9 million in the hole. So that means any public employee that's going to retire and draw their retirement, Mary Beth Pageant, the Chief Financial Officer of Josephine County, retired a little over a year ago. She retired at 138% of her pay. So when she retired, she got a 38% pay raise. Now, I have no problem with anybody earning a living. Most of us earn livings. We pay our mortgages, we pay our houses off, we retire, and maybe we're pulling 50% of what we earned over our lifetime. I don't have a problem with that. I understand law enforcement has its hazards. I'm going to throw an interesting statistic out there. Police officers and law enforcement is not in the top 10 most dangerous jobs in the United States. A commercial fisherman is, a transportation driver is, an aircraft pilot is. Law enforcement is not in that top 10. Again, perception, what we're led to believe. Yes, they do have hazardous times on their job, and they do respond and keep us safe, and they should be justly compensated for it. But again, this is an administrative failure. If Josephine County is $9 million in the hole, let's go back to the ISF fund and the $900,000 per year. I think I'm starting to see why it's getting filled in. This is the 10th attempt at a safety levy. Basically, we talked about this, 240% tax increase. And this is a reality I personally have trouble with. I had a woman call me 3 weeks ago. She was in tears. She was living down in the county, and she said, I don't know what I'm going to do. If this levy passes, it's between paying my rent, food on the table. Right now, after I pay all my bills, I have $12 left per month. I have nothing else. I don't know what I'm going to do. Retirees and disabled, a minimum, they're going to lose 10% of their fixed income. If you're getting Social Security, something like that, you can take, with this tax increase, 10% is gone. 900,000 into the commissioners, and then again, trust is the issue here. Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Well, and that's part of what, yeah, no, okay, you bring a point up. $900,000, when I say it goes to Keith, Cheryl, and Simon, that's their discretion. And the reality is this entire $1.40 goes to them. And then it's up to them to move it into the sheriff's department. It goes into the general fund. That's the big money pot. And then I've been told by law they have to statutorily move it to where it was intended to go. But if you got $900,000, that goes back to that key phrase, budgetary process. Well, that's how they get away with this. Or excuse me, this 900,000. But, you know, these are the costs. And that's why I say, where does the money go? If we were told that this levy was going to be giving pay raises and be shoring up PERS, it would be a non-starter. And I think that's why it's willfully, intentionally not told or not explained to us. You know, pay raises, it's hard to justify pay raises when people in the county don't have work. And, you know, there has to be a little bit of compassion in that. And that's why I said government's not so good at contracting. We're in hard times, just the way it is. We don't have economy, we don't have jobs, we got to turn that around. If we have jobs, if we have economy, I believe people are more willing to move forward and would be more willing to support these things. But I think what's important here, they have to be well defined. We have to know where our money is going, accountability, transparency. What I want to know is, or what I want everyone to know, is these are our resources. Everything we presented up here, this is where it came from. We reported actual numbers. We reported actual crime statistics. Nothing was fictitious here. We have a reference for everything we presented to you and where it came from. Again, it's perception. That was one of the things I was concerned. I went to 2 of the levies put on by Cuffs, and I asked these specific questions. I did not get answers. So then, of course, started digging, started looking into it, and we found out what was being stated and said was not true. And so, you know, it came out of the Sheriff's Department, Grants Pass Public Safety, the Oregon State Police, the FBI, the 911. This is a ranking of websites using all of this data. SOS, Cuffs, the couriers published information. We showed you the tax guide, county information, state information. These are all public information out there for everybody to get a hold of. So we can chat.
Okay, it's we're running over a little bit. I think we should head for a break. I've got a couple of little things I want to say. We've got Dale has ended up doing a little halftime when you go into the break, and those of you who want can stay and watch it, and those of you who don't. I want to say one thing that'll kind of culminate in a little audio here, and that is, in digging as much as I have, I feel we have a manufactured crisis. I think it started in May 30 of 12, and we have continually hammered it at every level to say, crime is up. Boy, we're on the cliff. It's terrible. We don't have any money. What will we do? We have to have this money. And it has continued to build and continued to build. I have a little audio that will kind of shock you in how bad the building was in this county for what people are now saying.
When other people are sleeping in their beds at night, we see what's happening in our community and the degradation that this behavior of these street thugs and those people who have come here with the sole purpose of creating hate and discontent and taking advantage of the generosity of our community, it's offensive to me. We can no longer sit back and expect somebody else to take care of it for us, because it won't happen. The bad guys will dictate the future of our community, and we can't tolerate that.
Well, yeah, and once they gain a foothold, it'll only get worse. And let's use ISIS as an example here, how our president labeled them JV, and guess what? They made varsity.
We are saying that if we don't do something right away, that we're going to have a tsunami like ISIS in our crime in the county. This is our local radio station, folks. They've drunk the Kool-Aid or something, and I see this as a manufactured crisis. I see it on the front page continuously, and you just need to know that we don't have the crime problem that you've been told we have. And with that, can we take a break, and we'll come back for questions for the rest of the time.
Take a break, stretch your legs. Well, I thank everybody for doing this. So, you know, we kind of recap and look at everything we've talked about and discussed. I think we've pretty much gone over, you know, the crime statistics, the finances. We've broken it down and figured out where everything's going. Now, one thing that happened yesterday was this, and I think this changes it quite a bit. So
excuse me, how many of you are aware of this happening? Okay, so you're all on our side. You've all been watching. This was not unexpected if you were sort of watching the inside track. The timing, I think, was unexpected for most of us. It went faster, and we were able to see this actually come out at this level this early. And also, who has the best details on what has been announced in the paper today, which adds another $2 million on top of the 4.6. So I don't know. I think if we wait 2 more days, we've got it made. We don't have to raise anything. Yeah, don't think that will happen, actually. Good.
Well, you know, but we have to kind of look at this. This is great, but that doesn't fix or solve the problem. You know, we're good for 2 years, but I think what needs to happen is we have to start the discussion now. We have to start the discussion. We have to have community involvement, and we have to go out and look at things. I've been working on a project called Community Watch, and it's a little bit different in function, where we identify districts, Merlin, Cave Junction, Wolf Creek, and that community becomes responsible for its preparedness. And that preparedness is neighborhood watches. We'll go in, we'll have a coordinator, assistant coordinator, we'll teach them in communications, in medical, in logistics, and communication. What was the other one? Engineering. So if we had a Cascadia event or something like that, you have a large earthquake, the community can support and take care of itself. Well, with that, you're going to develop that sense of community. You're going to have neighborhood watch. People are going to pay attention to who their neighbor is, who's coming up and down their street. And you develop that. Then the county becomes more of a coordinator. You start getting the districts to work together. And there's a solution. It's an idea. It's not a perfect idea, but it's better than, here, take $1.40. Where's it go? I don't know, but thank you. You know, we've got to do better with it. But I think everybody in this room is responsible as a member of our community to get involved. You have a voice, use it. Write a letter, make a phone call, send an email, attend a commissioner meeting, talk to your neighbors, reach out, educate people. I mean, together we can figure out a good solution that works for all. I think the current levy and what we've been seeing is a situation of want versus need. I don't believe we need everything we're being asked for. I believe this is a situation of want. This is what they want. But like we do in our own individual families, we can only pay for what we can afford. And as we talk about transparency, we want to understand where our dollars are being spent and support it if it's being spent responsibly and in those areas. So with that, we have.
I'm just going to say, I was going to do the housekeeping for people on the mic. This is being taped, Dale's, both live and for posterity, so you can share it with your neighbors. But those questions that were out on the floor were never heard. So I don't know that we want to reduplicate them. But now, if we have questions, Mary in the back has the microphone. I would like you to stand here somewhere where you're not running around the room where Dale has to follow you with the camera, and that way we can get the questions out to the public and know what your concerns and comments are. Judy, you do. Follow Mary's directions.
Okay, we need to state your name and where you live.
Yeah.
What?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
Just a minute, I got 3 minutes for.
okay. Oh, okay. No, I want to thank you, Joseph, and everyone here for your presentation. But what I like to see is even though crime is down in Josephine County, in comparison to other counties and everything, I still think it should be the goal, as you said, with neighborhood watches and everything, always striving for something better. When I moved in this community, I loved to see all the churches. When I was staying at a motel, there were pages and pages and pages and pages of churches. I would like to see us with uncertainty at the federal level is to see where we can get the churches involved, because the youth, no jobs, et cetera. So as we're looking for to anticipate more problems, let's see if we can get people to really take a stand on the youth. And Joseph, we go out to that Northwest, that high school, and we're really getting quite educated in what they're doing. So my point is to continue to lower the crime, not just accept it and it's going to be in the boogeyman. Let's see if we can get to the point where we can help this youth out. Be aware of who these youth are running around, and let's see if we can even do that to cut down the crime. And that's my point.
I think kind of highlight what Judy is saying is every Friday, there's a group of us that go out to Hidden Valley High School, and they have a mentor program, and we go out for their lunch period and we just sit and talk to students, and we talk about our life experiences. What do you do? What it is? the principal out there, his idea is to encourage students and children to make it through graduation. That's at 64% graduation rate we need to improve. So it's a good thing. There's something everybody in this room can do. You know, it's basically an hour every Friday. He'd love to have it. And any school would love to have it. But that's how we have to get back into the community. Is Jim Bombeck still here? Is he? Yeah, Jim really is tied in with the faith community, but that's part of the things that we need to get back into is, you know, that accountability. You know, political correctness is out there. I'm not one for it, and I kind of call it as I see it. But it's important to get involved.
And that's the good news.
That's the good news. Bill's terrified of me working in the gray. Mr. West.
My name's Larry West. Okay. I like
Your
the
address, Larry?
Yeah, I live in the county. And I have to say, I think this is a great presentation, but I do think it's understated in the cost. And let me just bring some things that are going to cost us as well. It's part of this and attached to this, and we should be knowledgeable because this is where we're going to. If you live in the city of Grants Pass, you're looking at a $20 million bond coming up for waste treatment. That's going to impact you. If you live in Grants Pass, you have a $30 to $50 million bond they will have to float for a water treatment plant. That's coming up to hit you. At the present time, what we have is a unique reversal. In the city of Grants Pass, they have a shortage of police right now. So they're spending a tremendous amount of money, three, I think it is, police in training, plus a year to get up to speed after training, because National Guard pulling people in, Daniel's going over to the county, things like that, people retiring mainly. And so you got a police levy coming up downstream very quickly as well. So if you live in Grants Pass right now, if this new $1.40 passes, you would be at a minimum right now at $8.50 per 1,000 assessed evaluation. Now that's a long distance. That's a long distance from 58 cents per 1,000.
And that's what you're looking at coming up down the road in addition to?
Yeah, that's what you're looking. Now out in the county, it's the same thing, but there's too many factors to get into it here, but we're coming some big numbers there, but nothing like the city's going to hit us.
Well, Larry, I think what the point is that you need to move out of Grants Pass and go to the county, is it?
Well, a big thing that Larry brought up, and I meant to touch on, is the water treatment plant. As you go on to the Parkway and M Street, that's the facility on the corner there. That's got an expected 5-year life left in it. And the forecast on that has been up to an $80 million replacement cost. So in perspective, in the next 5 years, the city residents will be hit with $80 million to replace that water treatment. And those go down to EPA and federal and state requirements. It's not going to hold or last for the capacity.
Hi, my name is Clinton Chard, and my question is, you mentioned the 160 beds in the county jail, and it was way over capacity. Who benefited from that building of that jail set, and where did that money go to? Like, let's use our investigative journalistic integrity here and find out where that money went.
I think if you were to ask,
Well, the courier's here, and just an observation point, but I think they would probably have that in statistical records, would you not? We've woken them up.
did it? Was that a whole weekend?
Typically the wrong word, it's not all it often, hi boss, don't fire me.
No, I get to hold it.
Sean Hall, Daily Courier. I covered crime in courts for 15 years. Routinely, the jail would be over 180. The highest I remember it was over 200.
Okay. Was that, do you know, just for my own information, was that a period of time that they set money aside, like a year that they were at those levels and staffed and so forth? Or was that a peak that, you know, was momentary?
Was it Boat Deck weekend?
There was an official cap actually set. So that was and that was at 170. They kept going over that number, so the sheriff requested a cap.
Okay.
And so it bumped up high so often. That's my understanding is why he asked for a cap. Does that answer your
Okay.
question?
Partly, I'm not acquainted that much with the history of the jail as far as years up and down. I wish we had a graph. That'd be great. I love graphs. But
Yeah, I think the question was, do you know who originally built the jail and who benefited from that construction project? Do you like remember who the contractor was?
Well, it would be on the plate out in front of the jail.
I guess the answer is we
I
don't-
arrived a year or two after it was built. Yeah.
okay.
Sorry.
So, but we can find that information out. I mean, we're not going to have everything, but that's something that's like who built it and who benefited from it. So, thank you. I appreciate it, Sean.
Thank you.
I'll hold it for you.
All right. This goes back to that thing you were talking about, trust and accountability. When the idea of the jail was presented, it was a bond issue, and it was presented to the public, and then we needed this glorious jail. After they got it built, which I think took 2 years, they then told the public, oh, we didn't tell you we need some more taxes so we can staff this wonderful building that we just built. And the public responded in a predictable way.
Well, that year that it was built, they asked for 1.9 for a 1-year levy. They got it, and that was all they've ever gotten.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hi, someone earlier, I don't know if they've left yet, asked about the ONC lands and how we can get them back and actually resolve most of the issues of taxing in Josephine County. And Mr. Swift here has probably about every answer on the ONC that you could ever ask. So he's here. He was gone from the room at the moment that question was asked. So let's get him while he's here.
I think the question was with the ONC, how can we, how do they sell them? Was that the question was how do they sell in the force link? How do we get them back?
If we went back to the 1980s, when the BLM was complying with the 1937 ONC Act, Josephine County had the most outstanding, up-to-date, and successful law enforcement activities in the state. People traveled here from all over the state to see how we did it. Of course, we lost that when the BLM decided that they're not going to cut timber anymore and create revenues. Back when Dave Toller was a commissioner, Sora presented to the Board of Commissioners a plan for establishing coordination, exerting our rights under the law to compel the federal agencies to comport their activities with our plan. Citizens Committee was put together, a coordination committee, and after a period of maybe a year and a half of working, a plan was created. It sat on the shelf for years. Most recently, our new legal counsel cast it into legislative form. It's been adopted by our Board of Commissioners, and it has been forwarded to the agencies. Well, maybe something good will come of it, but the anticipation is we simply need to build a paper trail that will support
a legal action to compel compliance.
Good.
That's
Good.
where we sit.
Thank you, Jack. That, there is, and if you've not been acquainted with ONC funds on the internet, there's excellent histories, pretty condensed so that you have a good overview of the real history going all the way back to the 1800s. And it will make it a lot clearer to you about where we are in this unique spot in Josephine.
I think another thing that what Jack said, this has gone forward. And so when we talk about finding solutions in our community, write a letter, contact BLM, contact the Forest Service, make them known. Right now, they're having listening sessions, Portland, Seattle, Portland, Reading. Apparently, we were skipped. So it's important, go on the internet, write a letter. Part of the agency's mandate is the economic health of the community in which they are in. And they've failed on that. And so it's important to push that thing forward because we could have funding, we could have health in the community, we could have jobs in the community. And the reality is timber's not going to fix it all. That heyday is gone, that ship has sailed. But there are other opportunities. Timber's still part of that. There's minerals, there's recreation, there's tourism, there's high tech, there's a lot of things we can do. There's a lot of ways we can draw people into our community and create jobs. We just have to be creative about it. But you can't sit by the sidelines and wait for somebody else to do it. You have to get involved.
Dale Matthews, one of the great things about where we are now is that we have videos from about a decade, and we're controlling our own history. We know what happened, and we can demonstrate this. One example was I was sitting in one of these chairs because I go to all the commissioners' meetings, all of them, and Keith Heck chided me for chuckling quietly to myself. I'm right next to the camera, and you can't hear a noise from me. But he was upset because he had just told everybody the commissioners have nothing to do with this levy and that it was citizen driven. Now, I have it on tape, and most of you in this audience have seen the tape from this summer where Keith Heck was the one that kicked this off. It wasn't citizen initiated. It might have been picked up by citizens, but it started with the commissioners. So when you start hearing this stuff, I mean, you could come to our show, it's on every night, or you could talk with Bill, but it's non-commercial. So the point is, we don't have to allow the commissioners to rewrite our history anymore, because now their argument is with an inanimate piece of plastic and metal, a videotape recorder.
That's upset them more than once. Anything else? Any comments? Any questions? Yeah, there we go. I'm sorry.
Oh, you want, okay. I'm Alan Kobrick. Most of you might know me. I'm the vice chairman to Joshua for the Republican Party. But I have been a candidate for commissioner several times. And I ran against Cheryl. And if any of you recall, I had Plan B and Gil supported it. It was about the neighborhood watch. I lived through it 15 years ago as a councilman in Coos County. And we had direct experience. I had over 400 names of volunteers here. Nobody wanted to even ask me questions when we'd have the debates.
Yeah.
I mean, I was trying to forewarn, and here we are.
I think you're touching on something, because if you look here, we saw a single commissioner that's here at the beginning of the presentation and left. I mean, he showed up. We appreciate that. But a lot of times we see those that are pointing to positions or part of the discussion, if they're not inside the clique or the group, they're not. And there's a lot of good ideas sitting in this room. People took their time to come out here to hear what was being said because they care. They want to be educated. And there's more in the community like that. And I think we have to speak in a louder, unified voice going, like the Oversight Committee, hold on, not interested in your cronies, interested in the communities being represented. Where's O'Brien? Where's Selma? That's what we need.
I said, Tony's run, Bill Hotell's been a candidate. There's been many candidates that have had great
How many
ideas.
former commissioner candidates are in the room right now? Just out of curiosity. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, see, Mr. Hunker defined it as the caring fatigue. He says, you can only care so much, and it fatigues you. Fortunately, my wife is incredibly patient with my antics. But, I understand that. You keep coming back because you care about the community you live in and you want to see the best for all. And that's why everyone's sitting in the room. That's why we're having the discussion. And it has to be a
Absolutely, by the
discussion.
way, absolutely. What I pick up as we do what we do is this kind of two different groups or factions, and we're fighting and everything. And I think everyone in here, that no one's fighting, no one's trying to usurp the county's power or anything else. We just want reasonable involvement of the community, and we're all reasonable. I rarely meet an unreasonable person who is involved in the community. There's some unreasonable people out there, generally not involved. Yes, sir.
I'm Dr. Brad Personius, and so I'm one of the physicians here in the community. And so I appreciate the comments that are being made in the presentation. We're talking about economic development. We have all kinds of things happening, and we have this huge number of retirees in the community, and healthcare is an important part of this community. And my concern, the reason I'm here tonight, is because we're bringing professionals in of different stripes to service the community and offering them a position. And quite routinely now, there's a perception, or the question is asked, well, is this really safe for me and for my family here? And I think I really would be better off in Medford. So, unfortunately, a true statement. Too often, there are decisions being made by professionals that don't come to Grants Pass now because of the Bill O'Reilly phenomena, where they were now wearing the kick me sign for the last several years. Changing the perception, this is a start, but this needs to be, disseminated to the Rotary and to, the realtors throughout the area. The realtors get these same questions from people. Is it really safe for my family to live here in the county? You don't have any police. This is a lawless county. So the tax revenues we're trying to bring in are really being thwarted because we're not recruiting professionals that come with their incomes and their spending ability and their desire to, have a good life here. So we're sabotaging ourselves with these self-defeating discussions. I understand the Sheriff's Department needs to create a certain climate of fear to get their budget every year, but the Chamber of Commerce doesn't, and the Rotary doesn't. We're trying to build businesses here. This is a sour discussion that keeps perpetuating.
Well, I think you really touched on something here because it's a perception. It's a perception issue. And, we just put up here were facts. These are statistical facts reported by the government, what's really happening out there. And if I was to do an advertising marketing campaign, it would be something along the lines of move to Josephine County. We are the safest county in Southwest Oregon, and we have the lowest tax rate in the entire state of Oregon. We have the Rogue River. Crater Lake's an hour and a half away. The Oregon coast is an hour and a half away. We have excellent infrastructure and facilities. I would be selling it. But what's happened here? We have had those in positions of elected leadership saying the opposite. The agenda becomes, I'm saying this because I want to scare people to vote for $1.40 I'm not going to tell you about, so I can fund what I think is necessary, what I want, not what we need. And the reality is much different. Our community is safe. People in this room aren't running around committing crime. It's that little argument. We're talking about like 2 or 3% of the people. The Bill O'Reilly incident was a horrific incident. That was the woman who dialed 911 and says, tell her to go away. The reality is that can happen any place in the state of Oregon at any time. And it can happen to any community in the United States. It occurs. I used to work in Miami, Florida. I was flying for NBC down there. And I actually moved from where I used to live because of the drive-by shooting that happened at the restaurant I used to go to. It was right down the street from me. That's violent crime. That, 3 to 4 shootings a day was average. It was horrific. I've never seen anything like that in the entire state of Oregon. So it's a perception issue. But I absolutely agree with you that we have to turn that around. When we hear them sit up on the dais and go, we're the most, no, you're not. That's untrue. When the realtors are saying this, I want to see this data package go to the realtors. So it's like, hey, come to here. We've got the lowest tax rate in the safest county in Southwest Oregon. That's what we need to be saying. That's what we need to be advertising. We need to change that image.
Yeah, at least everyone here tonight knows a starting place to say, no, that is not true. It's a perception. There's been quite a bit on social media about perceptions, and one comment was, I don't care if crime is down. I feel unsafe and I want this levy. And my response was, you get to live in Disneyland if you want, but don't ask me to pay for it. That you can have your perceptions, but I'm not going to fund your perceptions because they're not based in reality. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, think about the economic impact of running your county down into the dirt because you're trying to scare up $1.40. What is that doing to businesses in this town?
Yeah.
The economic impact of that is a hell of a lot more than $1.40 per thousand. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, here's the success of it. They're telling everybody that, as the doctor stated, he has highly trained colleagues moving to Medford, which in reality is the most dangerous city in the state of Oregon, because they have the perception it's safer because they have police, when the reality is, no, it's safer here. It's what they're being sold, and it's what we're being sold. But he's absolutely correct. We're doing it to ourselves, and we tolerate it. We should never tolerate it.
Got time for one or two more, but go over, sure.
Hi, my name is Rob Martello. I've been here about 4 years, and many of the points that I was going to bring up have already been touched upon. But I do want to say this, that when my wife and I were looking at moving to this area, like I said, 4 years ago, we looked at Jackson County. We looked in other areas. Ashland looked beautiful, but of course it's very expensive. We looked at Medford. We came up to Grants Pass, and one of the factors that we chose this area was the tax base. I think that is something that people are tinkering with that will have unintended consequences that they will not be thinking about. Landlords will not be absorbing the costs. They will be passing that on to tenants. There's a guy the other day in the paper that stole a DVD player from Walmart to offer to his landlord so he would not be kicked out of his apartment. That is sad. There's also the main issue that really rankles me is that any time that we need money, and at some point we will need money for something, that it always seems to go to the property owners. Somehow we have become the cash cows of the money. There's so many other avenues to explore economically in this area that would prevent us from going and raising what I consider the golden egg, and that is keeping that tax base low, because that attracts businesses, it attracts retirees that come up here with money, such as myself, that disperse that money and spend it in the community. And when you start tinkering with that tax base and it goes up to 140, if God forbid this were to happen, all of a sudden it supposedly lasts 5 years. If there's anybody in this room that thinks we're going to go back to 58 cents after that 5 years, I got a bridge to sell you down on 6th Street. Okay, so I'm thinking, and my message is to the people that are voting for this or want to vote for this levy, don't think about this. Critically think through this. And that is, don't mess with something that you don't know what the unintended consequences are going to be. And in the future, think about the fairness of what you're doing when you're imposing a levy, unfairly, I might add, across the board to all property owners. Just because I live in a home that might be twice what the medium home is in this county doesn't mean that I'm going to get double the police services or the safety services. I'm not going to get 2 deputies. I'm just going to get 1 responding, if I get 1 at all. Okay? So really, the people that are proposing this are just into redistributing the wealth. And what I would have to say, and I've never gotten a clear answer, by the way, from anybody as to why we approach fiscal policy this way. If anytime we need money, we go to the property owners. Why is that? No. Well, it's easy. We're the cash cow. We're the targets. And then on top of that, I've been told such answers as, well, it's a good place to start. That's the way it's always been. It's the Oregon way. And my retort to that is that Karl Marx would be very proud of you. Because at the end of the day, this is our community. And if we are to be Americans, and one of the guiding principles of America is to be fair. Because if you're not fair, you don't have justice. And if you don't have justice, you don't have peace. And so we need to think about in the future when gathering funds that we do it fairly and not just take it from those who have it and give it to those that may not have it, simply because it's always been done that way. There needs to be new thinking, new ways of coming up with methods of funding needs that are legitimate going forward.
I think that's what you're
Yes.
touching.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what we're missing is we're missing visionary thinking and leadership. And we seem to be hitting the corners of the same box all the time. And we need to move out beyond that. But that's got to be a community discussion and a community involvement. I mean, I would encourage everybody sitting in this room tonight, go tell 2 friends what you saw tonight. Put them to the JOCO alert website so they can educate themselves. Education's critical. That's what we need to do, education. We've got 2, and I think we're going to have to wrap it.
Thank you, Joseph. I'm Tony Webb, and I. Did you want to?
She just lost a job.
Okay, I'm Tony Webb, and several of us in this room used to go to the SOS meetings, and we're familiar with the CUFS group. Both of these groups have been pro-levy for the last 3 or 4 years, and I would like to suggest that those groups have been stalling economic development in the county because they have told me we can't have economic development until you pass a levy. And so consequently, we've had almost no economic development in the county. If they had started 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago, working on economic development, we'd be in a far different position right now. So, I think.
And by the way, any of you who have any interest or ideas, Tony is a great hub for economic development research, and it's her passion. So if you hear of anyone that says, oh, I've got a great idea, and you really think it is, have them get a hold of Tony, or you get a hold of Tony, because believe me, it is time to have people who are just like us to start to take some action. Last one.
I'll try to be quick. My name is Bill Barkley, and my wife and I, my wife and Linda, and have been attended some of these meetings. This is the first one we've attended with your group. I have to say, very, very impressed. And I'm a fact-based kind of guy. That's how I've always made decisions in business, okay? For 40 years, I want to see the data. And we attended one of this, I forget the action group that's trying to promote this levy. There were no facts. There was no data. We tried to, Rob and I here tried to probe that. We got nowhere, okay? And so I just want to tell you how refreshing it is to see real data, okay? I do think what's missing, though, in a recommendation, I think a doctor friend here made a comment. We do have a Grants Pass Board of Realtors. I've been dealing with them for a different reason because of the golf club out here. But in any case, they're there, they have a leader, they reach out to all the realtor brokers in all of Josephine County, and they're more than willing to spread that kind of word. I can assure you that. Just got to get it into their hands. Yeah.
Good. And that brings us to a topic that, as someone said, don't you dare leave this meeting unless you hold your hand out. And that always gets touchy and so forth, but everyone here is involved with this now, are all volunteers. They give their own money, they give their own time. As community members, if you're so inclined, and even if you're not terribly so inclined, we're up against a $100,000 effort on CUFS. They're dumping $100,000 into this county. That's more probably than all the last 9 levies combined. They really, really want this. And so we could stand any kind of help. That includes your money, that includes your time, that includes your volunteerism. We have signs to put out. There's a lot of things. We have signs here tonight if you want to take it home. So the action starts tonight. we're more than pleased to have not only your help, but your support emotionally. And as I said, if you tell 2 more people, what would we have? I figured out, just by the way, if we just ask you, the voters of this county, to come to 1 commissioners meeting every 2 years, we'd have 500 a week every week. Every 2 years, just do 1 meeting and look at what the change it would be. That's the kind of apathy we're dealing with. So I think we're wrapping up.
The 2 gentlemen in the back, grass pass, please give them a round for their patience. I want to make sure we're not critical of their job or how they perform. We just want accountability of how things are funded. And I appreciate their support, or their presence here tonight. Thank you for everyone being here. I hope you've learned something. Tell folks, spread the word. If you disagree with this, I really want to hear that too. Yep. This is not a rah-rah thing. I mean, criticism is good. It gets us educated, and we can move forward positively. And we need to do so in unity as a community.
Can we send them to jocoalert.com?
Yep, jocoalert.com. All this data will be on it. It's downloadable, and you can pass it on, review it. And if you have questions, you can email through the site, and we'll get those questions so we can research the answer. I think we do have one research project now with who built the jail.
All the statistics that we had tonight will be on one downloadable PDF together.
Thank you so much.
You can always count on Vivian. Thank you.
And they can watch it on BadCounty.com.
By the way, if you have friends and you've told them a little bit about this and they want to hear this, don't forget, Dale's got it available, BadCounty.com. And it'll be on, what night? It's Wednesday night tonight, isn't it? I lose track. Thank you, Dale.
Okay, I guess that's it for their presentation.
Yes, and thank you for joining us this evening. We're at the halfway point, so there's just 4 more hours to go.
Yes.
We're really glad you could join us, and I hope that you found this interesting. How did our initial foray here into doing live meetings work for you? You know, you can give us some feedback and tell us if you'd like to see more of this kind of stuff. Please don't ask for more of this kind of stuff. This was really hard, but I think that we probably did a fairly good job. So thanks again for joining us, and for Mike Jones and I, good night.
Yes, can I say something?
Oh,
here,
yeah,
Dale?
well, go ahead.
No, actually, this went really well. And if you were watching the county's broadcast of the weekly business session today, you know that this went better than theirs did.
It did do that, and
Yes.
we're doing it out over the internet. How do you like that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you tomorrow night.